3, 2, 1. Fragments of Silicon, the podcast that we remember happens.
Welcome to the first, actually it's not the first Tuesday interview of the season, it's the second, I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, yeah, so we got another European interview to do this week, and we are pleased to welcome once again to the program Yacine Salmi of Salmi Games.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No problem. For those of you who might remember, we had him on the program last season to talk about the game Ellipses. And at the end of that interview, I remember we teased a bit of your next project, which I believe is ready to be talked about at this point.
Yeah.
All right. So your follow-up game is quite in a different direction from your previous work. It's a game called Late for Work, and it's a multiplayer VR experience.
Yeah, that's right. Should I just talk about it a little
bit? Wanted to confirm that. All right.
It's a local multiplayer VR game.
Right. Well, there's actually a lot to unpack here because, hang on, Petty Fan, do you have a trailer of this, or
I do not? I don't think you ever gave it to me.
Oh, hang on, I can do that right now. Because
now a local multiplayer VR game sounds a little bit challenging.
Yeah, it is. It's there's a lot of challenges just in terms of performance. Like you're rendering to the VR headset, and then we're doing like a split screen on the desktop. Mm-hmm. So you could be rendering up to 4 different screens on a desktop, plus the left and right images for the headset. So you have quite a few limitations.
Now, is this like everyone has a VR helmet, or is it just one person helmet kind of deal?
It's one person has the helmet, so and the other players play with either keyboard or gamepad. So the main idea is that what I've experienced from VR so far is that when you're playing with friends, it's one person is playing and the others are just sort of standing around, looking awkwardly at the person, gesticulating under the headset. And what we wanted to do is create more of a party experience with a VR game, so that you can join in to the experience that the person with the headset is experiencing and play together. So there's less awkward standing around.
So a little bit more integrated gameplay than, say, even Keep Talking and Everyone and Nobody Dies or whatever that one's called.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, big fan of that game, but yeah, we're taking a little different approach. So you're all playing on a shared screen.
Nobody explodes, excuse me.
Yeah, we wanted to do something like, I grew up on Mario Kart and GoldenEye and games like multiplayer games like that, and I wanted to bring that experience to VR.
All right, I think I am ready with the footage.
All right, if you would, proceed. So one of the reasons for the footage is your avatar is a gorilla.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I'm wondering, is there any particular reason why you're playing as a gorilla who's very late for his desk job?
Okay, so yeah, it's like you said, there's a few things to unpack. Uh, so what we wanted to do with the movement system is try something where you interact with the world a lot more directly. I think teleportation works fine in VR, but I wanted something more direct. And we thought about like you're pulling yourself around the world, and that worked. So we kind of gravitated towards a gorilla character. But then we wanted to create a coherent universe. And what we came up with is that you are a giant gorilla living amongst humans, and nobody really notices that you're both giant and a gorilla. And the idea is you have a normal day-to-day life. You go to work, you try to get your stuff done, you try to provide for your family, and you basically try to work around the fact that you're so massive and it causes all sorts of chaos. And the idea for Late for Work itself is that the way we want to do the first intro, the actual launch trailer, is that you're getting ready for work and you can't find your briefcase and your shoes, and it turns out that your kids took them and are running off in town, and you got to chase after them to get your stuff so you can get to work. Otherwise, you're going to be late for work.
Now, the way I see this rendered is that the gorilla is really mostly just a head and arms, or head and hands.
That's work in progress.
So at this point, as it stands, I cannot help but imagine that you are actually just Andros's upper middle class loser cousin.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. It's the character shouldn't have like any negative connotation. It's just a guy trying to survive and doing his best, and then just encountering just ridiculous situations because you accidentally knocked over a building and crushed 3 people, and now the cops are coming to take you away for. It's a what we're going for is a bit like Octodad meets Job Simulator.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody really notices you're a gorilla. They don't blame you for that part. They just blame you for causing damage to other people's property.
Kind of makes sense, I guess.
So the disembodied head and arms are so. The project, as you can tell, we launched it in early access, and there's still a lot to do. We need a proper animator and with like a full gorilla body suit, and like there's a lot of work to be done in that area. And right now, what we have is mostly placeholder.
Okay, so the plan is eventually to have a full body and proper inverse kinematics for the feet and stuff.
Yeah, that would be the goal. Like I think it kind of disturbs people that there's no body, and it's also makes it more challenging for the non-VR players to hit the gorilla when they're shooting at them with tanks or planes. So the head is a bit oversized right now in game, and eventually, once we have the full solution, then it'll be tweaked appropriately so that there's a body running around and you can aim at it.
So and it'll look less like Andros.
Exactly. Well, you could consider that a nod towards that game.
Right. Now, you mentioned that you're actually implementing movement with the gorilla, correct?
Yeah. So you reach out and grab the world and pull yourself along. And what we found with that is that it both feels very intuitive and it reduces motion sickness. And so it's important that the game feels very comfortable in VR because that's how you lose customers or potential customers.
Well, yeah, that's
it's certainly one of the reasons that none of us really do VR.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's one of the things that Oculus emphasizes a lot is that the experience has to be comfortable for players. Otherwise, you're going to turn off people. We're going to try VR once or twice and then be like, no, this just makes me feel sick, and I'm not ever trying it again.
Yeah, I tried an Oculus demo at my local Best Buy, and I nearly threw up.
Mm-hmm. What demo?
I don't remember which one it was. It was like one of the early demos that Oculus had. Like
Like,
when they were doing the whole public demo thing,
mhm.
honestly forget what game they were showing. All I remember is being very, very sick and almost wanting to throw up.
Yeah, and then the next time you even touch a headset, you'll feel nauseous again, and yeah, it's just bad for.
Like I even have problems if games have head wobble. I need to turn that shit off because
All right.
no.
Yeah. Motion sickness is a big barrier to VR right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think at least for me, most of my issue is if my body is stationary and the head is moving, the disconnect there is no, 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 no.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. One of the things we struggled with for a long time is how to do rotation in our game. So like the lateral movements, so translations worked fine, and then I had the idea like, you should be able to pivot around the point as well. So like you grab a mountain to like forward and to the right of you, and you like swing yourself around, and that should just work magically. And no, it doesn't work at all. Or at least we haven't found a good solution for it. And we tried like dozens of different things to make the rotations feel better. And it's like the instant way of making people sick is add a bit of uncontrolled rotation. So we just got rid of it completely. In our game on Vive, you don't need to rotate because you got full room experience. But on Oculus, you rotate by flicking the joystick left or right, and it just turns you 15 degrees
Oh, so this will
instantly.
support room scale?
Oh yeah, it supports room scale.
Neat.
So on early access right now, we support both Oculus and the Vive.
Now, is this just being in development for the PC, or is it coming to PlayStation VR as well?
We would love to bring it to PlayStation VR. We received our dev kits 10 days ago. But between now and a PSVR launch, there's a long way to go. So we can't really do early access on PSVR. So we got to bring a finished product. So yes, we want to bring it to PSVR. It's a matter of time and money at this point.
Yeah, especially getting the PS4 to be able to handle the unVR components as well.
Right. So the game should fit well in a couch/console experience because Sony wants to have these split screen experiences where you render stuff to the screen and to the headset, but then you have to take into consideration performance issues and all that. So,
honestly, the game kind of reminds me of the asymmetrical gameplay that you'd see on Nintendo consoles. Like, have you ever played a game called Pac-Man Versus?
I haven't, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that, or something for the Wii U where one person would be on the gamepad and everybody else would be on the television, kind of deal.
Yeah.
It's like, and I am interested that VR is exploring this concept because I honestly thought it would have died with the Wii U.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's when we first started working on it, we didn't come across other games, but since then I've like found a whole list of asymmetrical VR games. I think it's a fun way to bring people together, both online and also like in the same room. So, I think VR is like something you can't really explain to people. Like you either experience it and it's like breathtaking, or it makes you feel sick. That's the flip side. But once you do experience it, it can hook you in. Like I think newer headsets really make you feel that feeling of presence. But there are games, that focus on doing that shared experience, both under the headset and outside of it. And I'd love to see more games like that because it's an interesting space to explore.
Right, and so what are the other players doing in this game?
So currently, the other players take control of either tanks or trucks or planes. Mm-hmm. And we have 3 game modes. One is the standard team deathmatch. So the 4 non-VR players just gang up against a gorilla, and in different environments. And then the other more advanced game modes we have are more like hide and seek slash sort of like the gorilla has to find several items that the other players hide around the map. And these are meant for groups of players who've played this game a few times together and sort of have a feel of the map and know how the controls work. And so we want to build more, how do you say, more advanced gameplay into that. So there's more of a cat and mouse behavior. The VR player knows that there's spawn points here and here and here, and the other players know that the gorilla is going to go look there, and sort of you learn one counter technique, and the other players learn another counter technique, and so on. And there's a lot of other game modes we want to add on top of that. But the main thing the non-VR players are doing is, controlling the vehicles. And another thing we want to add later on is like human control. You could control little humans running around and then jump in and out of vehicles, or assemble super weapons together to take down the gorilla or the giants.
Okay, but you have to have at least one combining robot if you do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, what's the third game mode?
So there's the hide and seek and last man standing are sort of variations of each other. Hide and seek, you're actually hiding objects. The last man standing is really just you have each one life, and it's the last human alive wins if you survive like 2 or 3 minutes. So those two are slight variations of each other, but we want to build out more game modes. We're thinking about as well, like, can we do like cooperative game modes, and would players be interested in that? We have a lot of things we still want to implement.
Would it be like cooperative among the players, or some people aligning with the gorilla, or how would that work?
Do you know, like, oh god, what is this board game called? There's a board game where you got to defeat like infections around the map. Hold on a second. It's in my closet here. Pandemic. Do you know this game?
I have heard of that, actually.
So it's like a 2 to 4 player board game, and there's a virus infection around the world, and you play together to defeat the virus infection. And so it would be like working together to defeat a set of mission objectives. Or eventually we'd like to have an online multiplayer. And we thought of like having like it's like one VR with 4 local players against another group of players, which is like a giant plus 4 non-giants, sort of like a different take on like a Dota experience, with less of the build-up, but more like one team versus another team. So what we really want to do, like right now, we're focusing on polishing the current gameplay, and then what we want to do after that is just try out different game modes and work with the community to see what's fun, what's not fun, what directions we could take this game in terms of multiplayer game modes.
Well, speaking of which, is there any concern about implementation? Because you're doing a split screen couch co-op experience on the PC, and it's not a platform that's really known for those kind of games.
Yeah, we were wondering how many people use like Steam Link and whether or not that even works with a VR game. Like I said earlier, like I think the game would have fit better with console, so PSVR and or whatever Microsoft's coming up with. But the feedback we've gotten from the early access community is that the game is quite popular with parents who own a VR headset and have a bunch of kids. So they quite enjoy taking turns on the VR headset. And the other players are playing on the computer. So if you own a gamepad or if you own a console and you have an Xbox controller, PlayStation 4 controller, you can plug it into your PC and use that. But yeah, I don't know how many people play couch games on their desktop. But surprisingly, it's more than we expected.
Right. So, how far along is the game in development in early access?
I think we still got a long way to go. So we've been working on the game off and on since January, and I would say we have at least 9 months more of development. Uh, it depends on the final scope of the game. We'd like to implement a single player campaign, which would be exploring that storyline as a father, like just trying to hold your day job and then eventually getting fired and trying to become employed at other places and doing a series of jobs and trying to find where you fit in society. Uh, that's the whole single player campaign, and then we'd love to do an online multiplayer. That people keep asking for that. So, some people can play with their family or with their friends who come over, and most people play VR on their own.
I wonder if syncing would be a problem over that, over online.
And online is like a whole Pandora's box of challenges. So I'm wary of like diving into that before we're really ready to commit, like, I don't know, 5 to 6 months of development just for the online stuff. Because I think we could get a version up and going fairly quickly, but then as soon as you try to deal with all the physics issues, destruction, like the destruction system we have in place right now is still fairly basic, but we would like to flesh it out some more. So yeah, it's challenging. So I only want to dive into that once I'm ready to commit a big chunk of development for it.
Well, what made you want to do a VR game in the first place?
Yeah, since our last game was Ellipsis, which was like a touch-based experience. Yeah. I personally feel VR is going to be a huge market eventually. Like I think the technology has reached a certain threshold in terms of quality, and I think it's going to keep getting better. And it's just this wide open design space where there's so many problems to solve, like so many things to try, so many experiences that you can't necessarily do without VR. So I'm been very interested in trying out VR prototypes, and even while we were developing Ellipsis, we wanted to explore VR a lot more, and so Ellipsis was just kind of like this weird tangent we took, or not tangent, but like it's just Ellipsis was an idea we wanted to explore, and we did. But VR is something I wanted to invest in and take the studio in that direction. I feel like if we can establish ourselves as a quality developer of VR games, it's gonna maybe not right away, but like over the long term, it's a worthwhile investment.
And have you heard from like people who bought your previous game Ellipses about this? From the outset, quite a radical turn in development.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who. Well, maybe a couple friends. Other than that, I don't know anybody who bought Ellipsis who also bought Late for Work. And so it's like you said, they're two completely different games, and so we might be shooting ourselves in the foot by not, taking advantage of the user base we have created. But like, I don't have any current ideas for a good touch-based game. I just want to explore this VR space. So I don't know if it's the smartest business decision, but creatively, it's fulfilling.
That's good.
Yeah, like I think I mentioned this last time. We do a lot of contract work to pay the bills. So I'm trying to build a sustainable studio, but I'm trying to do it in a smart way. So like, not putting all our eggs in one basket, and making sure we have enough revenue coming in from multiple sources to pay the bills and keep developing our ideas.
Yeah. You're not the only studio that does that.
Yeah.
So can you talk about any of your contract work, or is that under NDA?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is under NDA, but like the contract we're currently doing has nothing to do with games. And in my
Okay.
experience, doing games contract work is not a so. If I'm doing contract work, it's to maximize the income I can get so that I can free up as much resources over the next X months to work on games. And
Right. Okay. I see. Like once again, we've experienced both companies, people who do contract work in the video games industry and who do contract work outside.
yeah, what we do hope for is, and it started generating some leads, but like that, if we establish ourselves as a VR developer, that we'll get more work in the VR sector, or more high-end work, and then do more contract work in VR. But that's like, it's both a quote unquote booming market, but also there's lots of players there already. Like everybody, well, I don't know. It seems to me like everybody's diving into VR, for better or for worse. But I think, yeah, like I said, we want to establish ourselves as a high quality VR studio and see where that leads.
Right. Right. I'm not sure if everyone's jumping into it because, well, like Microsoft is doing a lot of work in AR, HoloLens.
Yeah.
And,
well, yeah.
And Nintendo is doing, well, whatever Nintendo does. But yeah, there are a lot of players in the VR field from what I've seen.
It'll yeah. I'm biased, so like if I'm following VR news, so I'm getting a very biased stream, so I don't see the rest of it. But yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes. Like I sometimes wonder if we did a mistake by not focusing on the Switch, for example. Like there's always like an early gold rush when a new platform comes out that is popular. But I don't want to do a game just for, or just purely for financial reasons. And I don't have a good idea for a Switch game, so there's no point jumping in there. I don't know what Microsoft is doing.
Is it Microsoft? They're doing a thing called the HoloLens.
Yeah, I know the HoloLens, but they're also doing a thing with Asus, and there's rumors they're doing a. I don't know if it's the Asus thing or what is it Asus? The VR headset?
As far as VR, from what I can tell, they're supporting Oculus. Like their grand gesture was adding Xbox controller support to the Oculus Rift.
Okay.
It's like a lot of it has to do with Minecraft.
Yeah. Minecraft has had a big push on the Oculus and Gear VR store.
Yeah.
They're also doing mixed reality and.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Now, speaking of like the Gear VR and such, did you will Late for work on something like that, or is it just for the high-end VR stuff?
Currently, it's just for the high-end VRs. We are exploring, so we'd like to do a non-high-end version where perhaps you take control of everything that is not the Giant. So I thought of like a Gear VR or Daydream version where you just control the tanks or the planes or the humans from a for a non-desktop based VR system. So like for Gear VR or Daydream. But I don't know if that makes financial sense.
I couldn't say.
Let's say if we got funding for it, we definitely explore it. I think it'd be like a nice companion VR game or app, but we're already struggling with performance issues on the PC. So, well,
right.
You wouldn't do split screen multiplayer on a Gear VR, but maybe if it was like a different way to access the game, it could be interesting.
Right now, is the game being built in like Unity or Unreal or any sort of middleware engine?
Yeah, we're using Unity.
And how's that been working out in terms of development?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Unity. It's got its pros and cons, like anything else, and sometimes you run into weird bugs that you can't resolve on your own. But in terms of uh, access to experienced developers and being able to go from an idea to something concrete, it's it's one of the best solutions out there. Uh, so yeah, I've tried rolling my own technology before, and it's not for me because I am not proficient enough programmer to both be able to like do an awesome technology and create an awesome game. There's just too many things that can go wrong, and you end up spending years just on the technology. So I love Unity for the problems it helps us solve. And I can appreciate its limitations, and sometimes it's very frustrating, but it's a very useful tool.
Let's see.
So you guys
how
are
much
not.
is the game? Actually, how much is the game going for right now, and will that price increase, as it gets closer to release or at release?
So it's $9.99 or $10 right now, and it's the lowest price it's going to be until it releases. So what we would like to do is increase the price progressively as we deem it like worthwhile. So as we've added enough content, so if we add 2, 3, 4 new maps, then we would bump the price up, and we're committing to not doing any sales at least until launch. So what that means is if you believe in us now and like the game experience and invest now, you're going to get the game at the best price possible, at least until launch. After launch, then we might do sales and all that, but I want to resist doing that until then. Or bundles, as we were approached today for a bundle, and I'm like, the game's not even fully released yet. I don't know.
That doesn't really surprise me. It's like, given, there are some bundlers out that are not, maybe not much shady as they do the early access thing.
Yeah. I need to talk to Steam to see, like, we have a bunch of people who wishlisted the game, and I'm like, is there a way for me to notify them before I bump the price up? Like it's a sort of like a reverse sale. Yeah, I don't know. We're trying to create something.
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, shifting away from the game, I saw recently that you got hired at Indie Mega Booth.
Not me. That's Chris Wolf.
Oh, okay. I thought it was okay.
So he's working part-time for us, and he's he's focusing on marketing and PR for us part-time, and he's also got hired by the Mega Booth, and he's doing a bunch of stuff for them. He's quite passionate about games and loves going to conferences, and gets a lot of stuff done.
Right. I suppose at that point, right. So I'm gonna ask my compatriots here if they have any more questions about late for work.
I think all of mine have been answered.
So
yeah, I'm fairly good. Aside from, I'm vaguely curious about, like, I assume the people playing on the non VR have pretty standard first person ish control schemes, and then the monkey you said works by basically drag and pull on the ground with the hands, right?
Yeah.
So
we're working hard to improve the non VR controls because they're slightly clunky, I would say. So that's our focus for August, is to get the controls as smooth as possible. Mm-hmm. So for the planes, like, my inspiration is Star Fox, basically. And for the tanks, like, right now they're like dual controlled, so like one stick moves and the other one aims, and we're going to experiment with putting on a one stick or just tweaking a lot of stuff to try to make it as smooth and as smooth as possible. We want the game to be pick up and play, so at any point a non-VR player can jump into the game. So even if the VR guy is doing like a single player mission, a non-VR player can jump in and just start messing around. That's the aim for the game.
So
Can I
yeah,
ask you guys where you guys stand on VR in general?
I'm really concerned about getting hit. Sorry, Adam, you go first.
Needs to come down. Needs to come down in price.
Yeah.
VR is sure a creative space, but as far as an actual application, we're still in the early days. You know, where all of the equipment, a lot of, so the potential audience is pretty limited. You know, good or bad.
Yeah, you need like an $800 machine just to run VR adequately.
Yep.
And that's without the headset.
And I'm not talking like Gear, you know, like Gear VR or car, anything like that. That's not the same thing as Oculus and Vive, so on and so forth. It's like that stuff is, well, high end, but it's also got a high end. And concerns me because the insurmountable barrier to VR. Well, the ecosystem could grow stagnant before you know, enough on board with it. Deal.
Yeah, I think VR is Sorry, sorry. Do you want me to go, or do you want to keep going?
I say so. As far as development itself goes, they really need to be in sickness deal control. That is the biggest hurdle to outside of price to connect with VR, and you know, it's a problem that, you know, movement is disabled in a lot of VR games. You know, that's why teleportation is a thing, to make sure people don't throw when they move. That could be the other death for VR. Like, people just can't get used to tracking and never deal with it again. All right, Alex.
Yeah, I think VR, there's a lot you can do with it, and I think it definitely, there are some games that make the most types of things that make the most sense in VR, but I think a lot of the games that are being made in VR don't necessarily need that, and on a personal level, I'm not a huge fan because I get headaches really easily, and that kind of thing can instigate that. But this game seems like a good idea for a way to integrate it with other things. So
I think this still has a lot of hurdles as well. So I'm just curious what the market will be like in 5 years' time, and if they manage to solve this sort of the wireless tracking, so like outside in tracking, so that you can have an experience on a mobile headset that is like the Vive or the Oculus, I think then it'll become very exciting. I'll be honest, I don't spend a lot of time under a VR headset either. Okay, I don't have tons of time to play as well, so I have my own problems. But one thing I really like about VR is this feeling, this godlike feeling you get sometimes when you can reach out and grab the world and manipulate it, either build things or destroy things. there's something, I don't know. It makes you feel very powerful.
All right, I think do it for this. Yacine, thank you very much for taking my schedule, being with us here.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me again. It's been really cool.
No problem. No problem. Getting late for work. It's on Steam this right now, just for Windows or Windows Mac.
I think in theory we support Mac, but yeah, there's nothing really on Mac yet for VR. So once it's a viable platform, we'll support it as well. But yeah, right now it's just for Windows.
Fair enough. Like, it's available for Windows for both the Oculus Rift and the H5 Steam VR. It's going for $10, I believe.
Yep. Yeah. You can find out all the infos at lateforwork.com.
Okay. All right, and we look to see more in the game.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you'll implement. You want in the months ahead.
Yeah, we
and
also. Sorry, go.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
One of the things we want to flesh out as well, I forgot to mention this earlier, is that we want to flesh out the non-VR portion because it's been fun doing like tank battles in our office and playing battles, and we want to flesh that part out too. So I don't know if it'll become a standalone game without the VR component, but we want to flesh that part out too, and maybe offer a non-VR version as well.
I'll see if that comes. So that'll time we have for 8. Be sure to tomorrow. We'll be having Jason Cardboard Utopia. We'll be talking about the strategy RPG, Children of the Zodiac. I'm looking forward, and we hope you are to it as well. And at such time, I wish you good game.